Councilmember Young is present, and Councilmember McCom is present.
Thank you. This time, would everyone please rise? Our Public Works Director, Mr. Raymond Johnson, is going to lead us in invocation and the pledge.
Okay, thanks everyone for coming tonight. Please bow your head as we pray. Father, we gather here tonight with grateful hearts. Father, we thank you for the great city of Willow Park. We thank you for the city council members, city staff, and the residents. God, we know that you have great things for our city. Father, we just ask you for your blessings on us for 2019. Father, we ask you to give us wisdom and peace tonight. We ask this in Jesus' name.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Raymond, thank you. This time we have public comments. We have Mrs. A.J. Hanna. If you'd come forward and state your name and address, please.
A.J. Hanna, I live at Better Place Estates in Willow Park. Mr. Mayor, City Council, the agenda for this evening's council meeting indicates 3. Discussion only. Willow Park Drought Contingency Plan. I think that's a lot better than a home for little old ladies, so I'm excited to talk. Upon further investigation of the drought contingency and emergency water management plan for Fort Worth, I discovered that in all 3 stages, detailed in 4.4 drought and emergency response, there were several exceptions of the commercial and residential lawn watering restrictions. Among them, the following. Lawns and landscaping may be watered on any day by handheld hose, drip irrigation, a soaker hose, or tree hose. In other words, it's the sprinklers that are the landscaping water wasters, and the only purpose for sprinklers is blade. In addition, under 4.4, subtitle All Water Users for all 3 restriction stages, is the following instruction to water users. All water users are encouraged to use native and adapted drought-tolerant plants in landscaping. Under this same 4.4, subtitle City and Local Government, you, city, are to increase public education efforts on ways to reduce water use. All this points to xeriscaping. In fact, the definition of xeriscaping is the use of water-conserving, drought-resistant, native landscaping and hardscaping. Yes? I know people use the word xeriscaping, and sometimes they call it moonscaping, but these are terms used by the uneducated. And the Fort Worth Water Department has instructed the city to increase public education on ways to reduce water use. More specifically, the state of Texas, Texas Property Code Section 202007, passed in 2013, indicates that covenants may not prohibit or restrict a property owner from using drought-resistant landscaping or water-conserving natural turf. The new generic covenants that are based on these laws have the following instructions, and these are all quotes. Every approved lot must continue to meet the minimum landscaping requirements except to encourage xeriscaping. In the era in which these regulations were drafted, xeriscaping is a relatively new concept. If the property was not originally developed on this xeriscaping model, it may be difficult for some people to imagine how traditionally landscaped yards can coexist with xeriscaped yards. You smile. They may imagine moonscapes and weed gardens next to lush, carefully groomed yards. These regulations, which are based on state laws, say that you are to attempt to manage the transition from water-rich landscaping to xeriscaping. The association may not restrict or prohibit natural turf or landscaping designs that promote water conservation, and an owner may install and maintain drought-resistant landscaping or water-conserving natural turf on any portion of the lot. So, tonight, as the council and the administration addresses the new water conservation and restrictions for the city of Willow Park, I would ask you to do so in the fullest sense of the Texas and Fort Worth instructions to, quote, to educate and to encourage water-conserving, drought-resistant landscaping, and to manage the transition from water-rich landscaping to xeriscaping.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll approve, need a motion to approve the city council meeting dates, December 11th and December 18th. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the city council meeting minutes of December 11th and December 18th, 2018.
Do we have a second? Any other discussion? Are we good? All in favor? Thank you. Item number 1 on the agenda, discuss to consider and take action on appointments to the Board of Adjustments. Is that Miss Betty?
Ms. Chu.
Sorry, Betty. Gotta get out.
You have in your packet an application from Michael Chandler to serve on the Board of Adjustment. He would replace Eric Contreras, who is now on the City Council, and then we did have a resignation from James Doss. So our alternate number 1, which is Richard Kasparian, has agreed to serve on place 5. We'll still have 1 alternate.
So we're approving Mr. Chandler and Mr. Kasparian.
Yes.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve Michael Chandler and Richard Kasparian for the Board of Adjustments.
Second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Are we good? All in favor? Item number 2, consider and take action on ordinance 786-19, an ordinance ordering a municipal election to be held on May 4th, 2019.
Okay. Next Tuesday? Next Wednesday, the 15th. Thank you. Yeah, I'm getting my dates. The 16th, you can begin filing for your places on the ballot. We have up on council, Councilwoman Fennell, Councilman Contreras, Mayor Joel Moss, and Councilwoman Leah Young. Fennell, Contreras, and Moss have their terms are expired. Councilwoman Young is fulfilling the unexpired term of John Golson. And per statute, she has to come up for election in May. And then the winner of that contest will have to run again in May of 2020. Congratulations.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 786-19 for municipal elections to be held May 4th, 2019.
Do we have a second? Is that a Tuesday?
Saturday. Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
One quick note, y'all have a calendar in front of you, and this is available to the public as well. It's on our web. I think it's on our website.
It's in the packet.
Yeah.
The packets are available on the website and in my office.
Yes.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor? Number 3, discussion on Willow Park drought contingency plan.
So this is discussion only. There will be no action taken on this tonight. Couple of things that have kind of brought this to the forefront is, first and foremost, we have an impending water agreement with Fort Worth coming up. I just received notification today that it will be on their January 29th agenda to pass and accept. So we'll get into that later when I go through the future council meetings, but Fort Worth will adopt the agreement on the 29th. Part of that is we will have to adopt their drought contingency plan, or their drought staging, as well as their water conservation plan. So there will be 2 documents from Fort Worth that we'll have to pass. We can combine them into one if you'd like, but Fort Worth has contingency. So what we have now is basically 5 stages of the drought plan. Stage 1, I believe, is 3 times a week. Is that correct, Raymond?
Current plan.
Yeah, the way it is today. Stage 1's 3 times a week. Stage 2 is 3 times a week, but you can't only do it in the morning. Yeah.
Stage 3, which is what we're in now, is twice a week watering. Stage 4 is once a week watering, and stage 5 is basically emergency black flag is what they call it. What this will do is it will take those 5 stages and condense them down to 3. And you will be uniform with other surrounding communities, such as Aledo, Hudson Oaks. Any community, a wholesale customer with the city of Fort Worth has adopted some variation of this plan. It'll be stage 1 is twice a week watering. Stage 2 is once a week watering. Stage 3, what they call black flag, emergency use only. There are various triggers inside the Fort Worth plan. All of it has to do with Tarrant. Yes, thank you. Thinking over Trinity. It has to do with Tarrant County Water. I'm going to say Water Development Board, but I know that's not right. Yes. Thank you. When the lake hits certain stage levels, it triggers that stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. In our discussion with Raymond, and one of the things that I'd like to visit with council about, as we have, and this will be an ongoing discussion for a couple of weeks, maybe a month or 2, is we will need certain triggers for our well stages as well. So when our well capacity or our well demand is at 90% of whatever capacity is, does that trigger another stage? That makes sense. Yeah. So if I'm not an engineer, so if it's 1 million is our capacity, and our demand hits 800,000 for 300 days, for 3 days straight, that would trigger a stage 1 or a stage 2 or whatever y'all decide to do.
Are you saying that would be even after we've tied into Fort Worth water? Because that would be an issue of.
I don't think after we've tied into Fort Worth water.
Those triggers.
Yeah, I don't think those triggers, they wouldn't be applicable.
Exactly.
I mean, once you're tied into Fort Worth water, I mean, quite frankly, if we're using 4.5 million gallons of water a day, we've got a serious problem.
Okay.
This is for the plan until we look into it
Until,
more.
right, the triggers.
Yeah. The well triggers, if you will, would only be until we have tied into the Fort Worth water. And I think that's something that Raymond and Derek probably need to discuss in greater detail to bring to you guys. And also, we want your suggestions. And one of the things I've suggested is we have a public hearing. I want to get public input on this as well. To Ms. Hannah's point, and I was smiling during the presentation. I've heard this 2 or 3 times from Ms. Hannah, and she articulates the argument quite well, actually. I think we need to do an education campaign for water use and water consumption. I'll give you a personal anecdote. When I bought my house here in Willow Park, how the sprinklers work, they run you through the car wash is what I like to call it. Last time I had a sprinkler system, I put it on for I think 15 or 20 minutes per station, and Heather and I got our first water bill, and I was like, what is this? And the guys came out. I did pay the water bill, by the way. The guys came out, and the heads that I have in my yard, and if they're in my yard, they're in Hunter's Glen, they're in Meadows Place, they're in Willow Park Village. I'm using roughly 17 gallons per minute on a single head. Well, I don't need to run that station for 20 minutes to get that kind of coverage. I can run it for 4. Sure enough, the next month we cut back, and my water bill has been in line with what my normal use has been. I think we need to do an education campaign for a lot of people. I think a lot of people get a sprinkler system, they crank it on, and then they just leave it like that. And they're probably overwatering their yards, probably oversaturating their yards. I may be the only dummy in Willow Park, so don't put that in the paper.
No, you're not.
So, y'all have only had this for a day or 2. We had some issues trying to transpose it on Friday afternoon, and take a deep dive into it. But keep in mind, we have to at least, what you have in front of you is the bare bones that we have to pass Fort Worth. We don't have to have it done by the 29th. We don't have to have it passed by the time they sign the agreement. But, they're going to want to know that we've adopted this and the water conservation plan.
Before we sign the agreement with them?
Before we, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, no, excuse me. Before we turn the tap on and get water from them,
I'm with you, okay.
we have to,
Okay.
we have to
So
do.
might as well go ahead and bring it up.
Yes,
And-
yes. I will say this, Ms. Young brought up a point, Councilwoman Young, excuse me, brought up a point this afternoon. So their water conservation states that they are in a constant status of 2 a week water. And they encourage, and I'm pretty sure they're going to require wholesale cities to adopt that same policy of twice a week water. Now, their water conservation is twice a week, every day of the year. Their drought plan is stage 1. I asked what the difference was, and had staffer tell me it was enforcement. We don't enforce the conservation policy, but we do enforce the drought policy. So those are some things to consider as well. I want to be clear about this. I'm trying to figure out how to be nice about it, and I don't think there's going to be a good way about it. The days of watering your yard 7 days a week, as much as you want, are over. And they just are. And it's not, our system's running out of water. That's just the way this is going to have to work for almost in perpetuity. Water is abundant right now. It may not be in 10 years. And we need to conserve as much as we can. And if you go from 3 times a week to 2 times a week, Fort Worth has a study that says they saved roughly 9% just by cutting back 1 day a week. Well, 9% to us is pretty significant on a hot July day. And so that's, I think that's the message we need to stress to our residents, and it's through education, and it's through, constant communication with them about that.
Could we, while we're on this, set a date to have this done by? This is January. Could we have it done by, say, April?
I think April's very doable.
Can we do that? I'm sorry?
With a public meeting?
Yes.
But between now and then, have everything done, we'll have this concluded by April.
Yeah.
Is that good?
And I would like to see if we can also include some, invite Doug Shaw to come speak, to also invite well owners to come, and then it's also good for the general populace to see what kind of state the whole state of Texas is grasping for water, except for East Texas, and Dallas is building a pipeline to East Texas to take it out of East Texas. And
I think
so-
we take care of this right here and then we go there. I don't think we bring everybody in on this.
just so well owners can, it's just to help educate and show the bigger picture for everybody.
I know, but I don't think the well people are going to be concerned with it.
It would, however, we've got people on city water and they're right next door to somebody who owns a well. And so then they feel like, well, they're able to use their water, why can't we use our water? And there's so much tension there between well owners and city water. And there's this perception that cities use more water than well owners do, than individual well owners. That's not the
Well, I think the
case.
appropriate, what I would favor is that we keep what we're working on with our city plan to what affects the
Yes.
city water users, but maybe promote, and Doug Shaw,
Yes.
it's been discussed, the county
Yes.
just passed new water well regulations. We'll just make people more aware
Yes,
of what's out there to get the information, maybe,
yes, I like that.
to attempt to get it out on our website, but not have it be part of the meeting, because I think it could just bog down what we're trying to do with our contingency plan for our water.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
I think you promote responsible water management regardless if you are on a well or if you're on city water.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, it's all coming from the same straw, especially if you're on wells. The difference is going to be at some point in the future, you're starting to see a little bit of that, but not a lot. But I would suspect in the next 10 years, you'll start to see some wells start to fail. They may not be, we're experiencing that with 26 of them, that, at some point you may not be able to rehab that well. And so I think you need to educate them as far as the city is not a bad alternative to having well water. And many times it's a good, nice convenience to know when you turn the tap on, there's going to be water coming in.
Okay.
So, a couple of comments. So, one, wells. Like, can we get some updated numbers prior to any public meeting
On our well system,
on our well system?
I've got some. Well, I was going to do it later, and I got it right now. We have started our well program, and we can do a fully updated update on that.
And I would do like a presentation.
Yeah, that was the kind of. I can tell you right now, we're at 1.4 million gallons per day. We can produce that from our wells. Our max high last year, 2018, was 1.25, and we still have. And that 1.4 does not include Weatherford at all.
Right.
That's what we're producing on our own. In the future, we're permitting and about to. Have we put that out to bid this week?
The 2 new wells?
Yeah. We're going to bid for 2 new wells, and we're either going to rehab or drill an additional well on top of that. So you're looking at potentially 3 new wells. I'm going to say conservatively, you're going to add another 250,000 gallons per day to the 1.4. That gets you at 1.6 plus. That would be roughly 150% of your max day, 130% of your max day from last year. So you should be okay going into the summertime. But we will do a presentation. I was planning on trying to do that in February. To do here's an update on the water situation. This is what we've done. We'll probably have a good idea of when the wells will be drilled and completed, and what kind of GPMs we're looking at.
And then the other comment, going along with what Ms. Hannah said, can we have the P&Z board start taking a look at our ordinances and seeing what they can do?
For xeriscaping. Yes, not zeroscaping.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with that too, because we discussed some time back about reviewing the landscaping and the permitted plants, and you can look over in Weatherford and Hudson Oaks, like all their commercial properties have drip irrigation, and then they have very water-wise plants.
Yeah.
I really
We can,
believe all this can be overhauled.
Ms. Chu, when you do your workshop later this month,
Good. Anything else on item number 3? April, for our meeting in April, we'll have this complete. Okay?
yeah, we'll need to schedule a public hearing, and you'll have to have a quorum for that. So I would suggest that we do that somewhere along the lines of a council meeting to
Okay.
just avoid.
Okay, thank you. Item number 4, to consider and take action on adopting an ordinance amending the number of members on the Board of Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone from 9 to 5, the composition of the board, and requiring that the board meet quarterly. Read the top here. An ordinance amending section 4 of ordinance number 739-16 regarding the number of members and composition of the board of directors of the reinvestment zone number 1, the city of Willow Park, Texas, providing that the board shall meet quarterly, providing a repealer clause, providing for a severability clause, and providing an effective date. Ordinance number 787-19.
So our TERS board actually expired in October of 2018. Now relax, we're all still on it. And if there was an issue that was to come up during this period, you'd still be required to come in and serve. The TERS board is essentially, the 9 members are the 6 members of the council, the city administrator, the city engineer, and the city attorney. In reviewing that makeup, I think it's fair to say the staff was a little uncomfortable with being a voting member of the TERS. We will always be your staff support, so we will be here. Our job is to advise you and provide you with options. Your job is to make the tough decisions. And so there was some concern there. The other one that we had as a staff was there was no, what I'd say, at-large citizen input. and we want to make this a citizen-friendly organization board. We want the general public's input on these decisions, much like with P&Z, BOA. So in discussing this with Leah, who brought this up a couple of months ago, and then in visiting with Pat and some other things, and discussions with staff, 5 is the minimum number allowed by statute. I think 5 is a good number. 7 gets really, really big. 9 is, I think, way too many anyway. And so 5 was the minimum number. The way we have it set up is the mayor will serve as the chairman of the board. It's called Board of the TERS Board. Mayor would serve as the chair. We would have a council member appointed, voted on by council, and then we'd have 3 at-large members, citizens at large, who would be voted on by the city council.
Very much.
So how would they apply?
So that's a great question. Obviously, you guys can visit with folks that you're interested in that you think would serve. I think there's not really going to be an application process. It's more of a nomination process from council. So I think the best way to handle that is if you have some names of some individuals who you think would be interested, who may be interested, I would encourage you to have those conversations with them. And then perhaps we can visit with them about what the TERS actually does, and there are some decisions they're going to have to make moving forward. That some people may say, I'm tapped out, I'm done. Much like Oklahoma tonight when they play Texas Tech.
Let's keep on the agenda.
Sorry, I was looking at Leah. But I really do think that I'd like for this to be a council-driven decision. If you want to put an application process on there, we can do that. I think you're going to get a lot of people probably who maybe have some of interest, but not really a strong interest. And again, I want this to come from council. I want you guys to really be the driver.
So I've been involved with this. Obviously, October 2016, I wasn't on the board, but I came and made public comment. I studied tax code all weekend and made public comment and expressed some concerns. And I'm very pleased to see that we're having at-large citizens on there, because that was something that I really wanted to see, was for the people to have a hold on it just like that. And so I appreciate you doing that. And also at that time in October, like after that meeting, I started forming a relationship with Kyle Wilkes, and I was able to start that relationship where I expressed to him concerns about the community and things that the community wanted to see and whatnot. And I say that to say that I would very much be interested. I would like to be the city council member to serve on this board. Because of all the council members here, I have the most history with it, save Greg. He's an old man on council with 5 years. And then I'm old lady with 18.
We won't be appointing anybody tonight. We're just going to
Okay.
set up. The reason why we're not doing that is obviously we're going to change the nature of from 9 to 5.
Yes.
I call it the Dolly Department, but we're going to change the nature from 9 to 5. And the 3 at-large candidates, I mean, y'all are just getting hit with this, so I'd like for y'all to, here's what the TERS is going to do. You're going to sit there and evaluate essentially the shops in that area. You're going to basically be an oversight for making sure the developer is upholding their responsibility. You're making sure the city is upholding our end of the bargain. If there's any changes to the TERS, y'all would sit there and evaluate, provide some discussion. Y'all, TERS board, would evaluate, provide discussion. The way it was set up now is kind of almost a rubber stamp for council, right? I mean, it would be 2 meetings for nothing. And so I really want citizen input on this. The TERS is a tremendous tool for development. it is an extremely costly tool for development to the city. Right now, we are getting 25% of the ad valorem inside the TERS. And is it 10 years from now? In 10 years, we will get a 50-50 split for the remaining 15 years. So citizen input, citizen oversight, that's vital, because for every tax dollar we don't collect, you got to make it up from somebody else. And so now, I'm not saying it's not a bad deal, and I'm not saying it wasn't worthwhile, and I'm certainly not suggesting that we should somehow do away with it. I think it's producing the results we anticipated when it was passed 2, 3, 4 years ago now. But clearly, you're going to want to make sure that we have oversight.
Okay, do we have an motion to reduce the number of members on the TERS board from 9 to 5?
I will make a motion to adopt ordinance number 787-19, an ordinance amending section 4 of the ordinance number 739-16, with stipulation that we have some
You need to read the entire caption.
oh,
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So, make a motion to adopt the ordinance number 787-19, the ordinance amending section 4 of ordinance number 739-16, regarding the number of members and composition of the board of directors of the reinvestment zone number 1, City of Willow Park, Texas, providing that the board shall meet quarterly, providing a repealer clause, providing for a severability clause, and providing an effective date.
That's it.
With the stipulation that members submit, or citizens submit, some form of application,
Okay. So you like for steps?
like a P&Z, just a kind of like a broad background.
Okay.
Second it.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, question, as far as specifying appointment to the board, is, how's that defined?
Well, if I could maybe answer, I wanted to make an amendment to specify appointment that in section E, after it says, after the mayor shall serve as chairman of the board, add the verbiage.
It's in this copy.
Is it?
Yes.
You already added that?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, and that's what it is.
Okay.
Is that so? What I was adding is that the council member would be appointed by city council, and the at-large citizens 3 through 5 would also be appointed by city council,
Yes.
and that alternates would be available as well.
We'll have an alternate council person, and we'll have alternates.
And I should have brought that up during the discussion. I apologize for that.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Did that answer your question, Frank?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
So motion.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Thank you. Item number 5, to consider and take action on setting a date and time for the next council meeting. Mr. Grimes.
We will have a meeting on January the 22nd. We have 3 agenda items that we will need to discuss. We have a bid currently out for 1,100 linear feet on ramp to finish out Ranch House. We were supposed to take that up tonight. There was some miscommunication in getting the second ad into the community news, and so we ran the first ad last Friday on the 4th. We're going to run the second ad on the 11th. It's the same identical ad, and so we'll share that up with you in the morning and make sure that it gets in there. And then there's a certain number of days that we have to wait. We will open bids on that morning, the 22nd at 9 a.m. I'm anticipating at least 2, perhaps 3 bids. So that's very remarkable considering where you are on the project. So we'll do that. We have Fort Worth called today in somewhat of a panic. We have agreed to an ETJ swap with Fort Worth. but they haven't actually presented us with an executed agreement. And they need to have that done by the 29th before they pass their end of it. So I told her we're going to be on the 22nd anyway, so we will agree with the ETJ swap. Basically, we're swapping ETJ of Fort Worth and Willow Park. And it's really works to our benefit from a public works standpoint. As the crow flies, the ridge that's on the east side will be the dividing line. Is that fairly accurate? I mean, there might be some, yeah. The reason I don't want anything on the other side, on the east side of that dividing line, is two things. One, I don't want to put a lift station in to serve maybe 10 or 15 houses. That's not a good use of city resources. Two, I don't want to get water over there. Same public works. So we're swapping that with Fort Worth. That was a non-negotiable requirement of them from a year ago. And so, but they're going to call me in the morning and get all the details, and then we will adopt that on the 22nd, or present it to you guys for adoption on the 22nd. The other thing is, tomorrow we're going to ICSC, and it's a retailer convention. We had an agreement with the retail coach back in October or November, maybe before that. And he wants to come and present the results of this conference and what he's done and where we are with him. And so I told him the 22nd would be good for that.
Okay, do we have a motion to set the next council meeting for Tuesday, January the 22nd? 17th.
I move that we set the next council meeting for 22nd.
Second? Discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Mayor's comments. I got positive feedback from the employees. They were very appreciative of the Christmas party. I think it went great. I appreciate everyone's participation and attendance. Mr. Grimes.
On behalf of the employees, thank you for your generosity in the Christmas party. Every single one of them loved it. We had roughly, I want to say maybe only two or three that couldn't attend, and so it was a great night for everybody. I do want to, before we forget, I do want to congratulate Alicia. Tomorrow represents her 1 year anniversary as the city secretary of the city of Willow Park. She does a great job, and she has a very difficult job. And she makes it look easy, and she does it with grace. And even when I'm a lunatic on Friday afternoons, she still makes it look good. And
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
We adjourn.
Second? Are we good?
Very
All in
good.
favor?
That was very good.
Miss Hannah? 7:38, we're out of here.